Hello and welcome back to Amazing Mind. If you have just joined us, we have as our second amazing guest, Dr. John McGrail. Now, Dr. John is an honors grad of HMI College of Hypnotherapy. He also is on staff at Breyer State University. And he came on the show today to talk about his amazing book, The Synthesis Effect. Please help me welcome my guest. Dr. John, tell me about your book.
Lisa, thank you. Well, it really is the child of my PhD dissertation. And, you know, I was trying to figure out what original work can I do in the field of human behavior, because it's all been done. We've been acting the way we're acting for thousands of years. And then it dawned on me I had this incredible database, over 1,000 clinical hypnotherapy cases. And so, I don't know, it was a moment of inspiration. I said, you know, let me just take a look at all these cases. This was the thing that was inspired. I'm going to try to figure out what the common denominators are between the people who do really, really well and get results really, really, really quickly, those who don't do quite so well, but okay, and those few, thankfully there are only a few, or else I wouldn't have a practice, that don't do well. And so I analyzed 1,000 case histories and began to come up with some common denominators. And I also realized, of course, that with experience I got better at doing what I do. But I began to incorporate lessons, traditions, methods, and techniques along the way. And what happened was, the more I brought spirituality together with the science of hypnotherapy, and the more I added these various ingredients in synthesis, both conscious and cognitive, as well as the more subtle and more powerful subconscious, we got better results more quickly. And that was really the birth of synthesis, which was the subject of my dissertation. And eventually I had so many clients say, you know, John, you got to write a book about this. It's amazing. I can't believe how good I feel so fast. And I finally said, oh, all right, I'll write a book. I'll try. And there it is.
I love it because this is now accessible even to the layperson. You said something very interesting, and I love the word synthesis, but you said things that most people perceive as being not related. You talked about science and spirituality. Can you speak to that? Sure.
And just as a side note, it is written for the layperson. It is written to help a layperson create change, transformation, and growth in their life. But, you know, the beautiful thing and the ironic thing is that Western science, and it's been, you know, purely Western science for the last 500 or 600 years, is all about empiricism. Prove it. I'll believe it when I see it. That's how we think. And if I can't prove it, it's not science. The ancient, more indigenous cultures thought exactly the opposite way. They believe in order to see. And what's wonderful and ironic is that in the field of quantum physics and quantum mechanics, cutting-edge science, using hard Western scientific rigor, we are proving, or those scientists are proving, in laboratories around the globe over and over and over again, that the way the ancient cultures thought is the way the world really works. We do, in fact, through the manipulation, balance or imbalance of our energies, physical, emotional, and spiritual, create our own reality. And so science and spirituality are really coming together, and that's what synthesis is all about. It's a tough word to say, but it really very clearly defines what the process is.
Tell us about the process. What do you do cognitively, what do you do spiritually, and what do you do in hypnosis?
Okay, well, they do all come together. And as I'm sure you're aware, when a client calls and wants to come in, they are all about the cognitive process. They have an issue. They think they're the only ones that have the issue, and that there's something wrong with them. This is not always the case, but very often. I'm the only one that's unworthy. I'm the only one that can't quit smoking. I'm the only one that has this anxiety or fear of flying. And so the first thing we do, and I do this before they ever come to the office, of course, is start setting expectations. Hey, you are not the only one, and there's nothing really wrong with you. You've been trained and programmed to think a certain way, to feel a certain way, but you're not alone, and there are lots of folks like that. By the way, I had my own problems, and they go, really? And so it starts from a cognitive perspective with understanding. How did I get this way? Why does my mind work the way it does? And once they get that understanding, you can see the light bulb going off. Now, we are open to introducing hypnosis, to working with the subconscious part of the mind, or I call it the subconscious spiritual mind, because I do believe that both of those energies exist at that level. And I introduce hypnosis in a very traditional, classical way, and then we bring in the spirituality slowly, depending on the client. Some people are very open to it and very amenable to it. Other people are a little bit more resistant, because when you say the word spirituality, it sounds woo-woo and new age. And so we have to gently guide them into the fact that, hey, look, this is science. It's not conjecture. It's not woo-woo. It's being proven in laboratories, so we bring that in, and when you combine them in the right mixture, you get an amazing result.
Tell me a little bit about how you explain to a layperson, a client just coming in who maybe doesn't have any kind of a background, how does the mind work and how did we get this way?
Well, you know, it's interesting. One of the best models that I have ever known and learned was Dr. John Kappas' model of the mind. And I start with his basic model. I have added some alterations to fit the spirituality part of things.
Can you share those with us?
Well, it's just acknowledging that we are spiritual beings. When we're first born, I start there. I have this layer that I call the lower subconscious or the superconscious. And when a child is born and comes into this world, we are full of vastly abundant, unconditional love for ourselves and anybody that wants to give it to us. We have not yet learned ego. We don't yet know about conditional love. We are full of completely perfectly formed and abundant self-esteem. We know we're perfect little beings. There is no such thing as failure. We don't care what anybody thinks of us. And if we want to do something, we just do it. And if it doesn't work, we just do it again and do it again and do it again with a big smile on our face because life is fun. By the way, rule number 1 in my method, life is supposed to be fun. And so we start with that. And then we go to what I call the upper subconscious, which is where the critical filter comes in, the association and identification, the programming, which again is fact. We are programmed at a very young age for the first 8 years of life. We bring in the conscious mind, show how all the dynamics work, and I show my clients that through their upbringing, through what we learn, which is mostly, unfortunately, negativity, unconditional love gets buried. Self-esteem gets buried. We start viewing our self-value through the opinions of others. And we, in Western culture, do not teach our kids very well how to nurture and develop their spiritual energy, which is the biggest part of us. And again, that's science. And so it's like a treasure under the ocean. It's there, but we can't reach it. And so what I say is that through this process, we're going to help you uncover those incredibly self-empowering energies. And once they're uncovered and flowing, you're going to see these negatives, these issues go away. Not just the one you came in with, but a lot of other ones too.
You mentioned something very interesting about things you've learned from the indigenous people.
Yes.
This is before technology, this is before Western science, and show me, or else it's not true. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist.
Yes.
What can we all learn from the indigenous peoples who've been around a lot longer than we have?
Well, we call it the law of attraction now in modern Western culture, but if you look at the ancient cultures, before modern technology, these peoples were spread across the globe. They had no knowledge of one another's existence. They were separated by vast geographies. And if you get rid of the surface, what I call cultural semantics, the particular rituals or ceremonies, and look at the core of their philosophies, how they lived with themselves, with the earth, with nature, they understood that there was this flow of energy and that they were part of a flow and connected to it all. And so for a very long time, they have been thinking this way: I will believe in order to see. I will believe in order to manifest. And when I was doing my research, I found something very interesting. Before native cultures were exposed to Western thinking, there is no evidence, at least that I could find, of these weird diseases like IBS and ulcerative colitis and OCD and bipolar. It didn't exist in those cultures until they're exposed to the way we think.
How do you explain that?
Well, because they lived in balance physically, emotionally, and spiritually. They knew they were energetic beings, and they knew intuitively that they had this ability to balance and integrate physical, emotional, and spiritual energies. And the sixth sense that we all have, I call it inner vision because that's how it was taught to me, that is incredibly powerful. It is connected to source energy and will give you incredibly accurate, good, and positive guidance because it is your spirit. It can't steer you wrong.
So we're actually getting back to synthesis.
We are absolutely getting back to the way it was a long time ago. We're calling it science now, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No. So you bring them together. You bring them together in a way that a given client with their values and sensibilities not only understands, then you show them the tools and you introduce them to the tools. This is exactly how the book is set up, and then a process through which to use the tools. Now in the book, along the way, I share stories of real people, clients that I've had that have the same problems that the people out there reading the book have. Look, this is what you can do, and here's Sally's story, and here's Andrea's story, and here's Jim's story. So the reader has a chance to say, well, if they can do it, maybe I can do it. And they can.
I have just a nuts and bolts question
to
ask you. Do you ever give your clients homework?
Every single session, every single client, every single week.
Do you have one that you can teach us that everybody can do, even before we read the book, inferred suggestion?
Very simple, and many of you may be familiar with this exercise, but if you're not, it's one of the things that I give every new client every week. Simply sit quietly in a place where you will not be distracted or disturbed. Turn off the phone, turn off the computer, kick the cat out of the room, preferably in a natural setting if you can do it. Simply sit, close your eyes, let them get so heavy they will not open. Hypnotherapists understand that feeling. Let the jaw relax because it's a storehouse of stress. You feel a release through the shoulders, and you just let your body get loose and limp. And close your eyes and take 21 slow, deep, gentle breaths all the way in, like a yogic breath. Hold it at the top for just a moment, and then gently release it all the way out. Now the rule is you have to count the breaths. I usually teach 21 to 0, but if a person prefers to count up, that's okay with me. If you lose count, you have to start over. And almost everybody in Western culture that's not trained will lose count, sometimes several times. So I gently advise them, don't get mad, don't get frustrated. This is the nature of the modern Western mind. You're scattered. This is going to help you learn to focus your mind, to quiet your mind, and then you can learn to tap into, turn on to inner vision. So in the beginning, if you're doing this for the first time, when you get through 21 breaths, simply visualize yourself having transcended, having made all the changes you're wanting to make, whatever it is. See that image of yourself up there on the screen, or hear it, or feel it, whatever it is that resonates with your sensibilities and your perceptions, until you feel this delight. That's me. And when you feel that delight, you are sending 50 trillion cells an energetic signal for the new you.
Sounds wonderful. Dr. John, everyone is going to want to get a copy of your book. How do we get it?
Oh, thank you. It is available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com, and all you have to do, it's paperback and both digital for Nooks and, what's the other thing?
We have
Kindle and Nooks.
And Nooks.
So Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com, it's readily available.
And I know that Dr. John has a practice in the greater Los Angeles area, and you can reach Dr. John McGrail at hmigrads.com. It appears we're out of time for today. I want to thank Dr. John McGrail for coming in and talking to us about his amazing book. I want to thank everybody here in the studio audience and those of you watching at home. Please stay tuned. We have a lot more coming up for you on Hypnosis TV.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. How fun was that? Effortless.
With some common denominators. And I also realized, of course, that with experience, I got better at doing what I do. But I began to incorporate lessons, traditions, methods, and techniques along the way. And what happened was the more I brought spirituality together with the science of hypnotherapy, and the more I added these various ingredients in synthesis, both conscious and cognitive,
Hello and welcome back to Amazing Mind. If you have just joined us, we have as our second amazing guest.
Look at all these cases. This was the thing that was inspired. I'm going to try to figure out what the common denominators are between the people who do really, really well and get results really, really, really quickly, those who don't do quite so well but okay, and those few, thankfully there are only a few or else I wouldn't have a practice, that don't do well. And so I analyzed 1,000 case histories and began to come up, really is the child of my PhD dissertation. And you know, I was trying to figure out what original work can I do in the field of human behavior, because it's all been done. We've been acting the way we're acting for thousands of years. And then it dawned on me I had this incredible database, over 1,000 clinical hypnotherapy cases. And so, I don't know, it was a moment of inspiration. I said, you know, let me just take a look.
Dr. John McGrail. Now, Dr. John is a honors grad of HMI College of Hypnotherapy. He also is on staff at Breyer State University. And he came on the show today to talk about his amazing book, The Synthesis Effect. Please Please help me welcome my guest. Dr. John, tell me about your book.
Lisa, thank you. Well, it